You are listening to the Booktrospective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Booktrospective. And this week we are going to do our part 2 of House of Flame and Shadow. I wanted to say House of Flame and Shadow again. House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. And so if you did not listen to last week's episode, then you'll be confused because you're right in the middle. But before we get started, Keely, how has your week been?
My week has been okay. Yeah, it's been a while since. I mean, in terms of Dominique and I seeing each other, it's been a while. Because we see each other usually
weekly,
if not multiple times a week.
I know.
But it's been good. We had a readathon. At this point,
we're not that far. Then we're like 2 weeks out.
Okay. Yeah. So
a couple weeks ago, we had a readathon.
Yeah. And it did really well. We 8 p.m. to midnight. A lot of people showed up. Great information for moving forward. Great feedback. So that was nice. That was fun. Other than that, not much. And you?
I'm sad. I missed the readathon. I was in Minnesota. Ooh, know how they say it? I don't know. First of all, that is so far from here. That was the longest drive of my life. I drove there. We drove at night because there was no traffic, which is great. But I drove and I was up for 36 hours because I did not sleep. Then I drove most of the drive. I drove 8 of the 9.5 or 7 of the 8.5 hours. And then I couldn't go to sleep. And it was morning time and we had stuff to do. My daughter, so that's where the Olympic trials were. There was Olympic trials. They had Pride going on. It was Somalian week. There's lots of Somalians that live there. It's honestly, Minnesota's a very strange place. So it's like the most like disjointed community. Like it's so weird. Also, like I don't want to say people were unfriendly, but like, I don't think that a single person told us like hello. Like outside of like they had like little shops and stuff set up at the Olympic stuff, but I was like, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of strange here. So I did that. I was exhausted. We went to the Mall America 3 days in a row, and like we still didn't see like every store in there, but like we went for like a couple hours, 2 days, and then we spent like a full 7-hour day there, and I was exhausted. Like I didn't know a mall could make me tired. So yeah, I'm done. I don't have any trips until October, so I'm done. So I think me and Keely will be back on our normal schedule of, well, hopefully she likes to see me, so I'll be here. I was so sad I missed the readathon. I was hurt. I was like, I missed book club. I had to FaceTime in. I'm not missing anything else. I was sad. My dad was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, I'm missing book club, and I missed trivia because there's a bunch of book club people that go to trivia now, and so I'm like, oh, okay, I want to go to trivia. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. So what are we doing? Okay, House of Flame and Shadow. Mm-hmm. We already did all of our pre stuff, so we're not going to redo that. But briefly, we got to about we got through chapter 47 in the book. So this book is actually separated into 3 parts. But this was about the midway point of this book, which is 800 and some pages. It's very, very long. Lots of history. If you didn't listen to the first episode, I'm kind of confused because why would you want to start in the middle? But you know what? If you are, basically, Bryce went to Prithian. She met our favorite inner circle. She's back from Prithian, but now she's in Avalon. The gangs were united, and they're trying to take down the Asteri. Tharian, Ethan, the idiot brothers, I don't know. They are annoying. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's going on. So I'm not going to do a full recap. I'm just going to dive right into this book. So All right. So at the very end of what we said last time, though, basically Bryce, Hunt, Therian, who was not supposed to get off the boat, Ruhn, Lydia, Flynn, Declan, the Fire Sprite. Nope, the Fire Sprite left. I'm like, is there anybody else? They were all in Avalon because Avalon can't be like penetrated. Like it has like mist and barriers, and you have to be welcome there. But since Bryce is like the Star Princess, whatever, she can get in there. So they went there basically because they're trying to go to those caves where Ruhn got the Star Sword. You're in there. Star Sword from. Because she thinks like that's the key to like taking down the Asteri. When she gets there, the king, Morven, who was Cormac's dad, he's just as terrible as her dad. He's like, only men can speak here, and only men that are not disgraced by their family, which is only Tristan Flynn. And his sister is there because Tristan's family, well, basically Asteri, threatened everyone's families that's involved in this stuff. So we meet Sathya Flynn, who is just as fiery as Tristan is. They don't have the best relationship, and basically the murder twins, which were Cormac's cousins and also Ruhn and Bryce's cousins, they have like telepathy powers like Ruhn. They are holding her hostage because basically she's not allowed to gallivant around Avalon without being wed. So, and she's like, I'm not getting married. So basically Morven has told them that any Valbaran Fae that are seeking shelter in Avalon have to pay a price, basically marriage. And so Bryce is like, yeah, okay, no, we're not doing that. And she's like, also, I need to go to the archives and to the Cave of Princes. And Morven's like, no women are allowed to enter those sacred spaces. And she's like, do you think we're gonna get our period blood on it? Like, why can't we go here, basically? But she's able to like get him to like change his mind, basically, because she gives him her dad's journal that she stole because, again, she locked her dad up in like a broom closet when he thought that he was holding her hostage. So, yeah. So basically, she's going to be able to do what she wants. And she shows him the dagger, which is, what do they call it? Truth Teller. That is Azriel's dagger. So if you don't know Akatar stuff, you gotta catch up. So he's like, oh my god, what is that? Because of the whole myth that if they reunite, or when sword and dagger are reunited, so shall our people be, or whatever it is. So anyways, so Morven tells her, like, you're bringing the wrath of the Asteri here. And she's like, well, I mean, you're hiding the Flynns. So, I mean, you're not really on their good side. And he's like, well, Sathya has to marry. And Flynn tries, like, to be like, okay, well, I'll just be responsible for her. And he's like, no, you're unfit. Like, she needs a real man, basically. So they're trying to get her to marry one of the murder twins. And Therian. So first you were engaged to the River Queen's daughter that you were engaged to for 10 years, and you did not want her, and she did not figure this out. So then you defect, whatever, and go to the Viper Queen. You piss her off because you basically defect from her to go to the Ocean Queen stuff. And then you are told not to leave the ship. But as the gang is leaving the ship, you hop on the ship. And now that we're in Avalon, you're gonna put your hand in to marry this strange lady. Because you want to be a good guy. I just think you should shut up once. Just one time. I just think if you just sit one of these rides out, that would be good. But you know what? He's going to be the good guy. He marries Sathya. So yeah. Okay. Well, meanwhile, Hypaxia is with Jessica and Ethan, and she wakes up Sigrid, but this cuckoo bird has decided to become a reaper, so there's that.
Yeah.
But real quick, again, if you don't also remember the last episode, this jumps around all the time. There's less jumping towards the end because they're all kind of in the same place, but it's still jumpy. Therian and Sathya get married. He's like, hey, we can get a divorce later. But Flynn's like, no, because in the Fae world, if you get a divorce, you're like, it's even worse than being like an unwed, whatever. So like, no, it's till death do you part at this point. Also, Flynn and Sathya are like royalty, kind of. So she's known as the daughter of Lord Hawthorne, and she is not only supposed to be like upper echelon, but she was supposed to marry a Fae. So like the fact that she married a mayor, is that what they call Therian? Mm-hmm. Yeah, a disgraced mayor with all these problems. Like, she couldn't have picked a worse person.
Right.
An ogre, maybe? I don't know. But Flynn basically says like his sister's annoying and she's spoiled, but like Therian's like, look, I don't care. I just wanted to help the girl out. Back back with the other three. So Sigrid rises, and she decided that instead of coming back to life through Hypaxia's necromancer powers, that she is going to be loyal to the Underking and be a Reaper. And she turns to Ethan, and like Reapers are dead. So she's like, "You killed me," like that. And she's like, "I won't forget this," basically. And like her and the Underking just like leave. So Hypaxia is like, "Okay, like I could fix this. Like we need a Thunderbird. Like we can use their lightning and resurrect her." Which, no, Hypaxia, she's resurrected. Like she's already back. Like whatever. And also, there are no Thunderbirds. The last one was Sophie, and she is dead. And her body is on a Vallon with King Morven. So back with the other group, Flynn is like complaining because he has earthly powers, and like before they even got there, he was like, "I hate going to a Vallon, like it feels rotted there, the earth doesn't feel right," and he's like talking about that again. But they decide to split up, so they're gonna have Team Caves and Team Archives. So Team Archives is Flynn, Declan, Ruhn, and Lydia, and Team Caves is everybody else. Oh, Baxian's with them also. I forgot about Baxian. So Team Caves is Bryce, Hunt, Therian, Sathia, and Baxian. I think I got it. There's a lot of them. So they all go to the archives first, though, and they're looking at these maps. And basically, Avalon used to have like other islands that are no longer there. So they're like, well, that's super weird. And they disappeared shortly after like the first wars with the Asteri and everybody that was there. Bryce feels like the Fae really don't deserve to be united, and Ruhn like gets kind of sad thinking about Cormac because his whole thing was like trying to unite the Fae, and him and Bryce being together would bring them all together. And like Bryce, I don't know, like Bryce is so like, I just feel like she's been so dramatic in this book because it's like, yeah, your dad sucks and like people have been nasty to you, but like Reese and them weren't nasty to you, and you're not horrible, and Ruhn's not horrible. Like they're all not terrible. So Bryce tells Ruhn like that they just don't have much time before Morven probably turns them in, so they need to hurry up. So they go to get dinner that night, and everyone's gone. They're like, "Oh, we're probably early," and they're like, "No, everyone decided to eat somewhere else because you guys are disgraced." And so at dinner, Bryce is talking to Hunt, and she's like basically telling him like he doesn't have to feel bad. And he's like, "What does that mean?" And she's like, "I don't know. Like, I just can't read you. Like, I can't tell if you want to be here or not." And he's like, he doesn't want to talk about it. And Baxian tells Bryce to give him time, but like Hunt is really struggling. Like he already didn't want to be involved in this stuff. He's already been defeated once in battle. He comes back into it. He gets dragged to these dungeons and tortured for a week or however long he was back. And he luckily got rescued because he was going to be killed. He loves you, doesn't want you to get killed. Like, no, I'm sure if he had a choice, he would not be choosing to do this, but right. He's also still trying to support you. And she's like being hard on him. So Baxian asks Lydia, basically like, how long have you been undercover? Because he's still like new to this whole thing. And then she asks him like, well, how long have you been like feeling this way? And he tells her like, well, since he had met Danica, like since he met his mate. So they all go to their rooms that night, and Bryce tells Hunt that she doesn't want him, she doesn't want to tell him how to feel, but she does want him to know that it isn't his fault. And he just tells her like, I don't know if I can do this again. And so he's like, maybe I need to become the Umbra Mortis again to be that. And they have sex that night, but it's super weird because it's like her starlight like imbues him. Like it's like they are like meant to be together. It's super weird. So that night also, Therian and Sathia like awkwardly share a room, but like they're not into each other, so they're just formalities. But when they go in the room, they're like, "Hi, I'm Therian. Hi, I'm Sathia." And they're like, "What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food?" Like weird stuff. But he basically after he's married her, then he tells her that I am running from the Viper Queen and all these people. And so Sathia's like, meh. And I'm like, girl, you're crazy. I wouldn't want anything to do with Therian. I don't want anything to do with him. And she basically tells him, like, well, she's not upset. She thinks this situation is better than the murder twins. Which, like, yes, but also no. Like, maybe in the immediate future, yes. So the teams are getting ready to split up, and Morven tells Lydia that she's a traitor. And she says that he's a spineless coward. And, like, basically was like, you literally were in front of the Asteri, like, basically begging for your life, and I saw you. Like, don't try it. Don't get cute. So Sathia, like, at first they weren't going to let Sathia come with them, but she's like, I'm not staying here by myself, which absolutely not. The murder twins are going to come and get me. So she's like, I don't want to be here, like, let me go. So she goes with the Cave of Princes, Team Caves. So Morven tells Ruhn before they leave also, like, you're the true Fae, you need to protect your people, you know, you need to be the king. And he's like, you do know that Bryce is Starborn. Like, literally born to be the leader. Like, and he's not trying to hear that. Morven says, like, well, she hasn't done anything helpful. And he's like, I prayed and I found, like, Ruhn, you're our only hope or whatever. Like, don't save your prayers. Please don't pray for me. Please, I don't, like, certain people shouldn't pray for you. Don't pray for me. Oh, okay. So the team of caves, they head off. And so Bryce is just talking to them about, like, her time in Prythian. And she tells them about the mask and the powers that it has. And in the caves, there's, like, all of this artwork, like, depicts, like, the 8-pointed star and a bunch of Pegasi. A good old Pegasus. But, like, the caves are, like, oozing this black stuff. And Bryce licks it. I'm like, okay, there were so many other things you could have done. Like, smelled it.
Right.
Felt it. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
No way I'm
gonna put my mouth on it.
Strange substance in my mouth. Like, gross.
Crazy. She's unhinged. And she's just like, I don't like it. Well, I bet. It wasn't supposed to go in your mouth. But okay. Meanwhile, back at the archives, Flynn and Declan leave Ruhn and Lydia to have, like, some alone time because they're still, like, you know, kind of tiptoeing around each other. But one of the murder twins, like, comes in and speaks to Ruhn, and, like, he looks one way and, like, the other one's there. So they're both, like, trying to sneak up on him. And they're like, Lydia shouldn't be in here. And they're like, I can smell you on her. And they're like, is it like being with a Reaper, basically? So they're just, like, they're disgusting and they're picking on him. So Lydia had told him, like, a couple of chapters back, like, you need to start acting like a prince. So he's like, I'm not going to engage with them. Like, I'm just going to ignore them. And it pisses him off. Like, it does work. So meanwhile, Lydia and Ruhn just, like, keep working through the archives, and they're kind of talking about, like, him growing up, and he tells her, like, Flynn and Declan really help him, like, stay sane while he was growing up, and she talks a little bit about her kids to him. Meanwhile, we're gonna jump back over to Ethan for a minute. So he is still with Jessica, and all of a sudden they hear a bunch of explosions, and Jessica pulls up her camera feeds, and they learn that the Asteris and megaboats basically shot down the human sector, like the Asphodel Meadows. So they just attacked them for no reason. So Ethan and Hypaxia rush to go help the survivors, and when they get there, there's literally a giant crater where the, like, heart of the meadows used to be. Back in Avalon, in the Cave of Princes, Sathya asks Bryce, like, what is your plans, like, once you, like, free Midgard from the Asteri? And Bryce is like, I don't really care what happens to the Fae. I'm disgusted by them. They're oppressors and greedy. Blah, 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 blah. And Bryce really tries to blow off Sathya, but Sathya is like, I'm not letting up. Like, she's like, you know, you represent the prophecy, and, like, we want a Fae queen. Like, we want you to lead. Like, you need to do that. But Bryce is really, like, and this, again, like, this is a big reason people have issues with this book, is because, like, Bryce really was just kind of being a brat. Like, she's just like, I hate everybody, but, like, a real adult knows, like, you have to have a leader, like, of some sort. Mm-hmm. So, like, you can't just, like, abolish the monarchy or whatever and be like, okay, everyone go about their days. Like, okay, well, then some terrible person is going to rise up and take over. Like, you have to step in or, like, shut up. Like, yeah, like, so, I don't know. Bryce is just being a brat. So back in the archives, Ruhn asked Lydia if she ever meant to meet him that night at the Lunathian ball when he saw the harpy instead. And she said she did, but she saw the harpy, so she, like, left or whatever. And Ruhn, like, kisses her, and it's, like, a super heated kiss. And he's, like, actually kind of shocked by himself because up until this point he was still pissed at her. So the next day, they're still in the archives working, but that day, Flynn and Declan don't show up for breakfast. So they're like, okay, like, they must be, like, off doing something or whatever. And while they're in the archives, Survivor comes in to talk to Lydia. So basically, when Lydia became, like, a double agent, she really did try to save people. And so she would go in and she'd be like, hey, like, the hammer's coming, like, get out of here. So, like, the guy, like, shows her, like, pictures of his family, and he's like, all this is possible because of you. And she's, like, super awkward. She doesn't want the thanks. But, like, Ruhn just, like, notices that and really, like, admires her for it. And he basically, like, decides to forgive her. And so Lydia goes, like, looking for coffee. And at this point, like, she is, like, turned on. She is, like, ready to have sex with Ruhn. And, of course, he notices because this world sucks and you can't hide how you feel for people. So there's that. But Flynn and Declan do not show up the entire day. And I'm like, aren't you guys worried? Like, where are our boys? So they're still working in the archive, and Lydia finds an archive that has ley lines. And basically, like, they're supposed to be ley lines under Avalon, but something about the layout changed, and the earth is, like, festering. It's almost like it's trying to hide from the Asteri, which would explain why Flynn felt the way he did about his powers. So back in the caves, Bryce is like leading everybody, and there's a river, and her star's doing the same thing it did in Prithian. So she's like, we need to get across this river. So she's like teleporting people across. And Baxian tells her that basically Danica wanted the same things. And Bryce is just like, well, I wish she would have talked to me about it, whatever. But her and Baxian finally have like this little moment of bonding and thank each other for like being there for Danica when the other one couldn't. So as she's trying to get them across this river, King Morven and the Autumn King appear. And it's not just them, but also the Murder Twins, and they have Flynn and Declan. So that is where they have been all day. So they show up, and they're like, where is Ruhn? So they show up, and Bryce is like, where's Ruhn? And they're basically like, oh, he's back in the archives with the traitor, basically. And Morven says, like, I knew you didn't get that journal, like, willingly. You stole your dad's research, and I went to go investigate. So basically, he let the Autumn King out, like, big whoop. So the Kings are basically like, they keep talking about how they need to save the Fae line. They want her to get a divorce, and they just like want to breed her. Like they just care that she like has offspring basically and saves the Fae line. So Bryce like holds up her light, and the Autumn King is like, run. And she's like, that's the first smart thing you've ever said. And she literally like throws it at them and collapses the cave. Back in the archives, Ruhn still doesn't know where his friends are, but he invites Lydia into his room that night, and she asks him, like, why did you end up becoming an agent outside of, like, Cormac just trying to, like, blackmail you? And he's like, well, he did try to blackmail me, but then I also felt like it was the right thing to do. And Lydia says, like, Morven didn't deserve Cormac, and Ruhn's dad doesn't deserve him. And she starts to tell him about her sons. So basically what we learned is that a lot of people were worried about this. So her sons are not the Hammers. Basically, and this is kind of interesting, before she got with Pollux, she was, I guess her dad was still alive or whatever, but I guess like the shifters do like this fertility rite. Very interesting. And she was in, like, basically she had sex with this guy and like never saw him again, but she got impregnated by him, and he was also a stag shifter. And so she kept her pregnancy a secret, and she hadn't been with Pollux yet, but she knew like she had to leave before they could like smell that she was pregnant. Again, I hate this world so much. So she ran to the Ocean Queen. The Ocean Queen offered her protection and basically said that Lydia was allowed to stay there for 2 years, and they basically made like the Triari believe that she had been kidnapped by the rebels. And though after the 2 years was up, the Ocean Queen forced her to become double agent and go back as the Hind and be an Ophian spy. And so she's like, I went back and I saved as many agents as she could, but she got with Pollux because it was like the ultimate cover. Like it just made the most sense for them to be together, which obviously it did. And she says like meeting Ruhn reminded her that she was alive. And so that night they almost have sex, but he like kind of like goes to like restrain her arm, like not in a bad way, but she flinches, and it makes him like want to murder Pollux because basically he's been so aggressive with her. So they literally just like sleep in the same bed. Like he just holds her all night. So back in the caves, Bryce and them are fighting for their lives meanwhile. So Bryce is blasting her power. She causes a cave in, and they all jump into the river, and even though like they want to save Flynn and Declan, they couldn't. So they're still with the Kings. And she doesn't think that they're actually going to hurt them though. So she's like, I think it'll be okay. So Hunt like snaps at Bryce, and because she just like jumps in this river, and she's like, look, I'm not letting my fear hold me back. And like they start arguing, which like that was shitty, Bryce. Like I get that you think you're a badass, but Hunt literally has been around for 200 years. He literally went to war. Literally he's been a slave. Like all the horrible things that could happen have happened to Hunt.
Right.
Cut him some slack, dude. Like you have not had any bad things happen to you besides Danica dying. Like, and I know that sucked, but like really, Bryce, nothing bad has ever happened to you. Like you weren't raised by your dad. Ruhn was like you had a great parents. Like you gotta cut people some slack, dude. So they're arguing, and they realize that the caves, or she realizes that the caves are really almost identical to those in the Night Court, and they lead Bryce to a similar door which like traps them inside, like kind of how the door was that led them to the prison. So Ruhn finally decides to get a little suspicious about where Flynn and Declan were because they still don't show up to the archives the next day. And this time, neither do the murder twins. So they're like, okay. He basically is like, I bet Morven took them as bait. And so he's like, we gotta go. So back in the caves, Bryce and everyone else are like going down this staircase they found to another river. And it leads them to a cavern that's filled with enormous quantities of black salt, which is what was oozing from the wall. So luckily, she didn't eat anything toxic or deadly, right. But it was just black salt. Also, we know that black salt from the first book summons demons. Mm-hmm. Also, it repels the Asteri, and it can help communicate with hell. So this is why the Asteri cannot come to Avalon, but why all the black salt? So basically, Bryce tells them that this area was built by Thea, not by Peleus. Because again, Peleus is like known in history to be like the super star prince, blah, 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 but he's really not. So Bryce just picks up this ladle and drinks the black salt water again. And Hunt's like, no. But he's like, okay, not without me. Nobody asked any questions. There were no questions about anything. They're just do. So she and Hunt drink this black salt water, and they lay down in the center of the room, and they basically go into this dreamscape where they meet Adis, Apollyon, and Thanatos. Okay.
Okay, just gonna drink this and, commune with some demons.
Yeah, okay. Sure, why not? So back with Ethan, he is still trying to help all the humans, and he realized, he's like, look, something has to change. Only 2 packs come to help them while they're helping the humans after the bombing. Back with Bryce, her and Hunt's bodies are unconscious. So meanwhile, Sathya is talking to Therian, and she's basically like, why did you marry me? And he says, he tells her he was engaged for 10 years to the River Queen's daughter. And she goes, and after 10 years, she didn't realize that you didn't want her? Thank you. Oh, you know what? It gets even crazier later on in the book. Because what is going on here? What in the world? Like, where were your antennas? He does not want you. But okay. So he also tells her that his sister died last year, and he would hope that if his sister was in the same position, like, somebody would help her the way he did. And he says it's good that he's married to her because now, like, the River Queen can't catch him and make him a concubine. God. Like, I don't... Okay. So, anyway, Bryce and Hunt wake up in this dreamscape with the princes, and Apollyon tells Hunt, welcome, son. What?
Like, what?
I'm sorry. And Thanatos goes, well, he's really more of my son. I'm sorry, what? Excuse me? Come again? So... Apollyon, Adis, and Thanatos also notice that Bryce's starlight power has changed, and that's because she now contains 2/3 of Thea's magic. She got the first third when she was, she's born through Helena's line, which is Thea's daughter, and then she got Celine's and the Night Court, so now she just needs the third piece. So basically, what we're about to learn is that the princes tell us that the black halo that Hunt has is very similar to collars that the Asteri used to use in Hell, but they could not contain the creatures of Hell, which is why they told Hunt that he could break it because he essentially is from Hell.
What?
He was made by Thanatos and Apollyon. So essentially, Hunt's mom was an angel, but she was like a lower. And he was kind of made in a lab. She was not assaulted, they assured him. And basically, he kind of had a, fake dad who worked in the lab and helped bring him about. As they're having this conversation, Bryce is still hung up about the whole Thea thing because she thinks Thea is terrible, which, she was, but then she tried to fix it, whatever. So Adis tells her, look, because Adis is the one that loved her. He's like, Thea was not all bad, and he does regret, and she had regrets as he does. And basically, we also learned that vampires and reapers came from Hell, but they defected to, serve the Asteri, which is interesting. So, there's that. So back to Ruhn and Lydia, they are basically running to get to the Cave of Princess because he believes that Flynn and Declan have been taken, which we know they have. And he sends his dad, so he's like, yeah, we gotta go. And Lydia apologizes for last night, and Ruhn just says Pollock should be the one apologizing. And she tells Ruhn, I want you. And he's like, you can have me anytime, except for right now. Just not right now. And she's like, okay, well, are you gonna take care of that? Because she was like, your pants are showing something there. I'm like, oh dear God, like not the time. Back in hell, Adis tells Bryce that she needs to find the last third of Thea's magic. And we learn that Thea died because she didn't have all that power, which, I mean, she knew that. Like, she gave her power to her daughters, thinking that they were, you know, going to make it back home, which Celine did. And basically, once, or when Thea had all of her power, it was used in the Star Sword, but she basically hid it somewhere so that Peleus also couldn't get it. And so once Bryce has all of Thea's power, she should be able to successfully command the Star Sword and Truth Teller combined. And Apollyon tells her about like thin places and how strong Avalon is. And basically, Helena buried Peleus here and also hid the rest of the power here. Thea was afraid to combine the swords to defeat the Asteri because the only caveat is that it makes some kind of black hole and it could suck the entire world in when you're also trying to kill the Asteri. So there's that. So Apollyon and Thanatos also admit that they have been like, or they used to have been like making creatures like the Crystallos demon, and they made the Thunderbirds. And basically, again, so the scientists that helped make Hunt, like they all worked together. And they end up killing that scientist basically because he got exposed, but the Asteri never knew anything like about Hunt. Like they didn't know he was a part of whatever the guy was working on. So Hunt's lightning is actually hellfire, meant to amplify Bryce's magic enough to open portals and to fatally wield the twin daggers against the Asteri. So Hunt was literally born for Bryce. So
no wonder they're made.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes and no, because he does get to this very shortly. Because he was worried. He was like, "So are we really mates?" And they're like, "Oh no, we don't have anything to do with your like romantic attraction." So they are truly mates. Like
it just happened.
It happened to work. It all happened to work out. Okay, but he was literally made for Bryce for whenever she would come along and be ready for him, basically. So luckily, he hadn't been killed any of these 200 years. And so he's like, oh, like I can kill an Asteri, and they're like, no, like his hellfire isn't the same as like the actual prince's. It's kind of like watered down or something like that. And so basically the princes are also like, you know, we want to give you our armies to help fight against the Asteri if Bryce like can succeed at opening the Northern Rift. And Apollyon, what we learn, is the one who killed Sirius, and he did use his hellfire. And also like after he like shocked him, he like ripped out his heart and ate it. So there's that. And Adis tells Bryce, if it becomes too dangerous, choose love and choose life. Like just forget it, which I don't know. Like I agree, but like there's no really turning back at this point. So, like, if you don't kill the Asteri, they're going to kill you.
And I mean, what life would you have?
Unless she goes to another world. So, like, that would be her only choice, is abandoning everyone else to deal with kind of the mess that she created. So, she doesn't really have a choice. So, Bryce and Hunt wake up, and they realize that the kings have appeared. And they now have Baxian, Therian, and Sathya trapped along with Flynn and Declan in like a ring of fire, and they've literally been like burning Hunt trying to get him to wake up. So the Autumn King is like, give me your swords, and she's like, you cannot wield them, you're not a starborn prince or whatever. And he finally admits that he did kill the last starborn prince before Ruhn, because he's a hater. So the murder twins like are able to get into Sathya's mind, and they like force her to hold a dagger to, I can't remember if it's her throat or Bryce's throat.
I think it's
her throat. Yeah. So Bryce is like, fine, whatever, I'll drop them. So she drops the swords, and she tells her dad, like, you know, if you spent, or she's basically like, why did you spend all of that time like yesterday telling me how much you love my mom, and then you come down here and this is how you treat your daughter? And he's like, you stopped being my daughter when you locked me in that closet, basically. Like, wah. So Bryce is basically like trying to cause a distraction by talking, and she summons the blades back to her while Hunt throws out his lightning. And Baxian tells Hunt to help Bryce, but he's like, she doesn't need my help. Like, she's got it. She's good. And Bryce is thinking to herself, like, I know that the Fae and Prithian were good, and not all of the Fae are bad. So the twins release their control on Sathya because Bryce literally melts their mind with starfire. Like, she's dangerous. And then Bryce uses her magic to melt off the Autumn King's hand. Ouch. And so then Ruhn and Lydia like run in, and the Autumn King like gets Bryce down and is about to like stab her, and Ruhn stabs him through the heart with the Star Sword and then cuts off his head. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as he does it, he basically tells his dad, like, what the Oracle said. Like, the Oracle didn't tell me I would be a fair prince. The Oracle told me that the line was going to end with me. And that's basically because, like, Bryce is going to be queen. And his father is like, you never deserved my crown. And he's like, I don't want it. He calls him a prick. And he's like, the line ends with me because I yield my title, my crown to the true queen. I was like, ah! So, off with his head. He's gone. Wow. Ripped to Einar. A lot of people thought he was going to have like a good arc. Like he was going to actually be like more like an anti-hero than like a bad guy. But,
I'm kind of glad he didn't though.
Yeah, like he just sucks. Like, no, you just suck. It's okay. So Morven is like, you know what? I yield, whatever. And Bryce is like, don't care. And kills him anyways. And she tells him, I'm judge, jury, and I'm your motherfucking executioner.
Yes.
Bryce hates them. She's like, you know what? This is for Cormac. This is for me and all the other women that you've been treating like crap. So, yeah. So, like, the kings are dead. So, Bryce is now queen of the Valbaran Fae and of Avalon. Instantly. And so, everybody in the cave, like, kneels to her because, like, what else can you do? And she realizes that the prophecy about the sword and the dagger uniting her people is not just about the Fae, but it's about all of the races on Midgard. And Bryce sees that there's an 8-pointed star in the center of the room, and it has slits which perfectly fit the sword and the dagger. So she puts them like both in the stone, and it unlocks the third portion of Thea's magic. So she takes that into herself, and as she does, it literally changes the entire earth. Like, the islands start popping up, they get out of the cave, and it literally like collapses it in. It's like literally like Indiana Jones or something. Like the whole like cave system is gone. And now that they're like before Avalon was like dark, misty, like gloomy, now it's like green grass, flowers, sun shining, and like her and Ruhn like hug and cry, and he tells her long live the queen. Oh. So, the castle, Morven's castle, literally gets destroyed because the island is reforming. So, like, literally rip to you. And Ruhn tells Bryce, like, I can't do this without you, and I didn't want to see you dead. And so now that Bryce is queen, she declares that all people who come for shelter in Avalon may stay without having to pay any kind of price. And they want to use the depth charger to bring more people. So, also, wonderful news, they have phone service now. So all that black salt and stuff was also, like, keeping out the phone service. Because Declan's like, hey, I have signal. But he reads the news, and they all learn of the Asteri's attack on Asphodel Meadows. And Lydio says, like, if we survive, I'm not going back to the Ocean Queen. I'm done with that. And they also learn that Pollux and the Triari and Mordok have destroyed every Ophian base and killed so many innocent humans alongside with it. So Bryce is like pretty upset. She feels like she did all this too late and like it's all for nothing. But Fury and Juniper show up because her family and everybody is coming to stay there because, again, no one can get there without permission. So Bryce decides that, you know what, we're going to go open the Northern Rift, and we are going to let Hell's armies in. And she wants to get the video from Jessica that shows like what happened to Micah to prove like what's been going on with the Asteri so that like the whole world like knows like the truth. So Ethan and Hypaxia meanwhile have been headed here this entire time to get Sophie's body because she won a Thunderbird. So they come and they're like, hey, need Sophie's body. And Bryce is there like, hey, sorry, the entire castle collapsed and her body is inside of it. So there is no Thunderbird. So Bryce tells like them like, well, instead of that, can Hypaxia work on finding an antidote for this magic parasite that the Asteri have in the water? And so Hypaxia is like, sure thing, we'll do that. And her and Ethan decide to go back to the House of Flame and Shadow. And they basically, before they left, they got these like crystals and filled them up with Hunt's lightning. And Hypaxia believes it will help stabilize the antidote. So Bryce also sends Ruhn and Lydia to Lunathian to find Hunt's angel friends, hoping like Isaiah and them will be like their allies against the Asteri. And Baxian is like, cool, can I stay here? Because like I'll just make sure like everything stays in order and I'll like help with the refugees basically. And this is where we learn his little backstory. So Baxian says like his mom was a hound basically and his dad was an angel. And they were tortured for being together. And also, I think they were killed when he was 8. And so he's basically been like alone this whole time, and that's how like the Hellhound basically came about. So that's like Baxian's sad story. Like he just had a sad life, and now he has a mate, and she's dead. So it's like, now what? Like that's so like having a mate is so sad. Like I'll never know love like that again. Like you literally like as a human in the real world, we're like, I'll never know love again like that. But like no, he'll never know love again like that. That is depressing. So that's Baxian. So meanwhile, Therian and Sathya are basically going on a suicide mission. So Therian has been asked to go to the River Queen to ask for shelter for as many people and ships as she can. Why they think that she won't kill him, I don't know. But he's going and he's taking Sathya with him. And then Bryce's parents show up, and they are going to go to help her open the Northern Rift because Randall can fly a chopper. And a lot of people have issues with this because they're not taking Connor, which is her brother, which is a male. And why is Ember going? Because, okay, she can't fly the chopper, but whatever. Right. She's taking Ember and Randall to the Northern Rift with her and Hunt. So, like, that night, they don't have anywhere to stay. So they're sleeping in these stables. And Lydia is like, they're all in one big room. Lydia is like dirty talking to Ruhn. And Flynn says, please don't have sex right next to me. Please don't have sex right next to us. And Bryce is like, oh my God, like, no. Like, it's bad enough that you can sense everything, but, like, they can also probably hear you. Like, please go to sleep. Please close your eyes.
Keep your hands to yourself.
And, like, separate. I don't know. So, dear God, please do not. So, Ethan and Hypaxia get back to the, wherever they need to go. They get back to the lab. And they think that maybe the Reapers are kind of like the answer to the antidote because Reapers don't eat, they don't drink the water, obviously. And so, like, because Ethan's basically like, well, what happens to it, like, once they die? Because they might have the parasite, but then they die. Mm-hmm. So he is essentially the water boy. He is sent to collect samples. So he literally, he goes over to the sink and fills a cup, and she's like, that is not sterile. So he's, like, collecting all these samples all over the city. And the helicopter arrives in Avalon, and so this is Ember, Randall, Cooper, not Connor, her brother Cooper, Syrinx, and then Fury and Juniper. So this is actually when they fully arrive. So back with Ethan, he is able to find a Reaper to, like, test, and it's a Lion Shifter who was actually from the Ox and killed by the Reapers. And people wonder if this is the Lion Shifter from book 1 that Bryce was having sex with in the bathroom. Right before she met that vampire. Yeah. Like, there's no way that, like, it could not be. But people are always like, oh, I wonder if it's the same one. So, Ethan gets the water from him, and, like, we learn that he doesn't have a parasite. And Ethan doesn't get his blood. Hypaxia gets his blood. And Ethan's like, how can you stand, like, being, like, that close to them? And Hypaxia tells Ethan, like, he's really lonely, and he's actually clinging to his old human life. And he's like, how do you know? And it's like, because, like, he still, like, wears, like, regular clothes. He was, like, very normal with Ethan. Like, yeah, bro. Like, whatever. Like, he, like, is trying to act cool. But, like, deep down, he's very sad that he died. Like, that's why he chose to be a Reaper. Because he wasn't ready to be dead. So, back on Avalon, Juniper and Bryce finally make up. Because they have not talked since she, like, pulled that whole princess stuff. And got Juniper promoted to principal. And she tries to give Fury the picture of the friend group and is like, keep this, keep it safe. But Fury's like, no, like, take it with you so that we're with you. Like, we're good. So Bryce tells her mom that, you know, her dad is dead. And Ember just tells her, like, I'm so proud of you. And she's like, you look like a functional adult now. So they, like, gear up and get ready to go out to the Northern Rift, which is, like, very north. Like, it's, like, snowy and everything there. Back with Hypaxia, she is able to successfully create a temporary parasite antidote with Hunt's lightning acting as a stabilizer. So she's not sure how long it will last, if it's a few days or what, but she can only make, like, 10 of them. And a lot of people have issues with this because they're like, how did Hypaxia just instantly, like, make this cure? Like, why is it so easy? They're like, it's so easy, but I don't know. So Hypaxia is, like, you know, basically telling Ethan, like, you could take over the wolves with this. So Ethan tests out a dose. He, like, blacks out, and immediately his power is, like, insane. Like, he can smell everything, he can change instantly, and he has new powers. He has ice and snow magic now. So Bryce, Hunt, and her parents arrive at the rift, and it's really weird when they get up there because there's no guards. And Hunt's like, yeah, this is not good. So Randall tells them, like, they're looking around, and Randall's like, hey, come look at the monitor. And Hunt's like, yeah, we have to go. Back with Hypaxia and Ethan, Hypaxia takes the antidote too, and they offer it to Jessica, and Jessica's like, nah, I'm good. Like, it won't help me, basically. So Ethan is like, okay, well, I'm going to go talk to the wolves. And he's like, I'm going to tell them about Sigrid, I'm going to tell them about the parasite and the antidote, and I'm just going to tell them, like, we need to get out from under Sabine. So back with Bryce, what we learned was on the monitor is that the harpy is alive and well-ish, basically. And she is at the Northern Rift. So Bryce teleports them into the actual rift so they can get done what needs to be done. So Ethan goes to the wolf's den, and Perry is the one that's like guarding or whatever, which Perry is, again, she's the Omega, which is like the lower, which is weird to me. But she's the one that like kind of saved him when Sabine and the pack like beat him up and took him to Bryce's. So she's the only one that will still talk to him anyways. So she's like, she allows him to like speak to the wolves. So she kind of gathers everybody and he tells them like everything. But as he's talking, in comes Sabine, bringing the astronomer and Sigrid. All of whom are basically like, Ethan's a liar, he's a traitor, he killed Sigrid, he turned her into a reaper. Like, that's not all true. That's not all true. So Sabine acts like, basically, oh, I love my niece, like, oh, she's gonna be my heir. And what we learned is that the Viper Queen, the shady queen, gave her the footage of the fight between Sigrid and Ethan. So, like, obviously it looks like, you know, he just killed her for no reason. And Sabine says that Sigrid defected to the House of Earth and Blood and will live here with the wolves. And they're like, excuse me? I'm not living with a Reaper. They eat us. I'm not living with a Reaper. I don't know about you. I'm not living with, I'm good. Because they're like, I'm sorry. Like, they were like kind of on board, and then they were like, you're losing me. So as Sabine starts talking about how she's like Sigrid's savior, blah, 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 Sigrid's her heir, the Prime comes in. And he's like, I don't remember approving a single thing that you're saying, basically. And he says, what Ethan said is true. Danica found out the truth, but I was ashamed, and I didn't want to acknowledge it, and I've allowed my people to basically be, like, subservient to the Asteri. And so Ethan, like, bows and tries to give him the Fenrir sword, and the Prime is like, Ethan is my new heir. He is the Prime apparent, and he strips Sabine of her rank, her authority, and her title. Sabine spazzes the hell out, takes the sword, and kills her dad. And then, because we're at the end of an SJM book, like, you know, that wasn't enough. After he's dead, Sigrid jumps on top of him and sucks out his soul as a Reaper. And then Sabine cuts off his head. Yeah. So, of course, everyone's like, what is going on? Hold on, wait a minute. So Ethan, like, literally grabs the Fenrir sword between his mouth, shatters it with his teeth, and he's about to fight. He's about to square up with Sabine. So, as all of this is going on, Sigrid then turns her attention to the astronomer. And the astronomer's like, I was your friend. I cared for you, my love. Yeah. Not working. She jumps on top of him and literally sucks his soul out too. And then she runs off into the day. So there's that. So Ethan and Sabine fight, but obviously, like, he's got a one-up on her. So he stabs her with a broken piece of the sword, and he transforms into a wolf, and he literally, like, rips her apart. So,
as he should.
Rip Sabine. And the rest of the wolves, including, like, Perry and her sister Amelie, swear their allegiance to Ethan as the new, technically, Prime. He's the Prime. And, like, wolves are so weird. Like, they have to, like, scent each other. Like, they, like, nuzzle their necks or something. I don't know. It's cool. I don't know. So, yeah, so Ethan's the Prime. Okay. So, back with Ruhn and everybody. Ruhn and Lydia break into the Comitium looking for, like, Isaiah and Naomi, but there's nobody there. And she asks Ruhn, like, are you nervous? And he's like, I mean, this is my first mission with my girlfriend. Like, can I call you my girlfriend? Like, is that cool? We didn't really discuss titles. Like, I don't know. Meanwhile, Therian and Sathya are going to try to meet with the River Queen. And Bryce, Hunt, Ember, and Randall are in the Northern Rift. So, all of a sudden, Hunt decides to throw his lightning into Bryce. And her mom is like, I'm sorry, do not do that again. And he does it. And she's like, I think that's enough. That's enough slices. because they've never seen him do that before. So they're like, oh my God, he's killing her. But she's like powering up. So Therian goes to the River Queen and he's like, look, we need to get some shelter. And all of a sudden, this lady, first of all, I don't think the River Queen's daughter has ever gotten a name. She literally is just the River Queen's daughter. So she comes out, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, mad at him for stringing her along for a decade. Now, was Therian wrong? Yes. Are you also stupid? Yes. I don't even know if I would consider what he did stringing. There was no string. 10 years is a long time.
And obviously made no effort
to do anything. Not even date you.
Yeah.
You weren't sleeping with him. You weren't dating with him. He never wanted to be under the water. What about that was not clear? So you know what? He decides to be a big boy for once. He's like, look, I was wrong. I apologize. And like basically like the River Queen's daughter's like, force him to marry me. She still wants to marry him. Why do you want to marry him? He does not want you. You are free. There are all these people down here that want you.
Right.
Go be with one of them. And the River Queen's like, no, you're not marrying him, even if you want to. Like, absolutely not. But she isn't, like, inspired by his, like, new maturity or whatever. And so she's like, fine, I will harbor the citizens who need it. And Sathya, like, stands up for him and is like, look, he stood up for me in a time of need, blah, 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 which that also, like, helps with the River Queen situation. So, back in the Northern Rift, Hunt's charging at Bryce, and she opens a portal, but not to hell. She opens a portal to Prithian. So, Nesta's just sitting there in her little chair, reading her book, reading her smut, as Nesta does. And she's like, what do you want? And Bryce is like, look, I need the mask. And Nesta's like, absolutely not. Did you forget the last time that you were here, you traitor? What happened? And she's like, look, I need the mask. I need the mask. And she's like, if I get the mask, I will bring them back. I will give you the mask and Truth Teller back. And Nessa's like, absolutely not. So she's like, look, okay, if you won't give me the mask, I need you to take my parents. Now, her parents have no idea what she's saying because she took the little bean thing so she can communicate. And she's like, just take my parents. Please keep them safe. Which, again, people have an issue with because then why didn't you take your brother? Why didn't you take Cooper?
Right.
Like, why didn't you? I don't know. So, okay. So Nesta, like, that does kind of touch her. So Nesta finally does give her the mask. Meanwhile, like, in the background, you can see out the window that there is, like, a black storm emerging, which is Reese. Which is strange. And I know, like, plot devices. But, like, why did he just win? Oh, it's the House of Wind. Okay. I don't know. But anyways. Anywho. So Reese is, like, on his way. So you might want to hurry up. So basically, she gives Bryce the mask. Bryce looks at her parents, tells them she loves them, and pushes them inside the portal and closes it. I would be so furious.
Yeah.
I would be so mad. I know there's no way that her parents would have gone in there willingly, but like, dang. Like, dang. And as she closes it, the harpy literally, like, appears, of course. Oh, I also forgot when I was talking about, like, the River Queen's daughter. She basically was like, I don't want to help the people or whatever. And they were like, you're childish. She literally was, like, being such a brat. Oh, but Therian does also tell her, like, after they agree, he's like, look, I will divorce Sathya and marry you if, like, that's what it takes. And Sathya's sitting there like, I'm sorry? Like, no, you will not. And also, Therian, again, shut up.
Right.
Why did you offer this bargain? You didn't have to.
Glutton for punishment.
He loves it. Shut your mouth is so huge. It is the biggest mouth that has ever mouthed. Why? Like, why? Why? So he also tells the River Queen that Emil has no powers. And that's when she basically, like, kind of tells him, so sorry, my notes were split. But she basically tells him, like, I see who you really are. You are a man that will save a woman. I wish I would have seen more of that before you, like, left. I think that you'll do great things or whatever. So, back with Bryce, the Harpy shows up. Harpy's weird. Harpy is, like, not speaking, has no soul, but just, like, a body, like a robotic, angry body. So, she's fighting, and all of a sudden, Isaiah and Naomi show up. And Celestina, the traitor herself. So, they take down the Harpy, like, super fast, because Bryce puts on the mask, and she's able to, like, go to sleep. Like, basically, like, go to sleep. Because she's just a dead body, basically. So that works. Oh, also, Bryce is able to just take this mask, like, on and off. People have issue with that, too. So there's that. So back with Ruhn, they're still at the comitium, and he's like, there's literally no one here. So he calls Flynn, and Lydia is like, you know, Lydia's basically talking about her kids, and she's like, I feel like a bad mom. Like, I feel like I did the same thing to my kids that my mom did to me by giving me away to my dad. And Ruhn is like, no, like, you gave them a better life. And then Lydia gets a message. Pollux has kidnapped her sons. Back over to Hunt and Bryce. Hunt is pissed. And he's like, I'm about to kill you. So he's about to kill Celestina. So Isaiah and Naomi are like, hey, like, chill out. Like, look, we were tracking the harpy. We didn't know what she was. And Celestina's like, hey, like, I'm sorry. I regret everything. Hypaxia broke up with me. So, like, I'm miserable. Don't you see me miserable here? And she's like, Celestina says, I want no quarrel with you, Hunt. And he says, too bad. I want one with you.
I love it.
Too bad. I want to tussle with you, bro. I want beef. I want beef with you. I was tickled. So he unleashes a little bit of his hellfire and literally gets that halo off his forehead and Isaiah's. Mm-hmm. And he's getting ready to, like, fire on Celestina. But Bryce shows up and she's like, look, I don't really believe Celestina, but I don't think that she deserves to die. And Hunt backs down. He does spare her life. And Celestina shoots at Bryce. I'm sorry, what? Like, why? And so Hunt blasts her. He does shoot her. And Bryce is like, we've already killed 2 archangels. Or no. So Bryce turns to Celestina and is like, look, we will kill you. I don't know that you know this, but we killed Micah and, what was her name? Sandriel. Celestina didn't know that. See? Sometimes when you fuck around, you find out. Like, so she did not know that. So she was like, oh my God, I didn't know. Now you do. So they're like, Bryce is basically like, we will kill you. And Bryce again is like, look, Celestina doesn't deserve to die. Like, you don't need to have her blood on your hands. And Bryce basically finally reveals her plan to us. So she wants to raise the fallen dead with the Maas, which are all of the angels that fought with Hunt, because the Asteri kept all of their angel wings in their throne room. So she believes that part of their souls are still attached. And she wants to use the mech suits that don't really need a pilot to harvest, like, or hold their souls, basically, so that they can fight alongside Hell's armies. Because Hunt's like, are they going to fight with their wings? So she wants to put them in the mech suits. So what the plan is that Isaiah and Naomi will lead the Fallen into battle. And meanwhile, Celestina's job is that she has to go up north to Ephraim and, like, keep him up there, basically. So they're like, basically like, okay, like, what made Isaiah finally, like, come around? Because again, like, they always wanted to tell Isaiah, but he's kind of like a goody two shoes, so you can't really know. But Isaiah says, like, the final straw for him was, like, the Asteri blasting on the humans. Like, that was it. So Bryce finally does open a portal to hell and invites their armies in. So back with Hypaxia, she is, like, passing out the antidote to the wolves, and Ethan finally gets word from Bryce, basically saying, like, bring us the antidotes to the Eternal City. Meanwhile, Jessica has got a meeting secured for Ethan with the Underking because he wants to speak to Connor. And I'm like, please, I know that this works out, but I was like, please, dear God, let Connor lie. Let him rest in peace. Rip Connor. Like, please. But he wants to go talk to Connor, so whatever. So during that time, Ruhn and Lydia have, again, learned that Pollux has the boys. And so they are going to try to get Bryce's help in saving them from, they're basically at the Asteri's palace, so that's where everybody is headed. So Ethan and Hypaxia head over to visit the Underking, and he's like, look, you got 7 minutes, you can talk to your brother. So he can talk to Connor, but the Underking has forbade Connor from speaking. So Connor could speak in his ghost form, but he's just not allowed to. So Ethan basically kind of like updates him on everything that's happened, and Connor looks like so happy, yada, yada, yada. So the Underking, like, buds in or whatever. He's like, yeah, like, I came from another world, and the goddess Erd that they know here used to be known as Word, and I can't wait for us to start Throne of Glass. That's all I'm gonna say. So there's that. And so Connor is, like, trying to explain that the Underking and the Asteri feed on the second light, and he hands Ethan this mysterious metal bullet. So their time runs out, and the Underking's like, time's up, whatever. But Ethan's like, give me, like, another minute, like, geez. And the Underking's like, no, like, I told you 7 minutes, whatever. So Ethan snaps, and his power explodes, and he literally freezes the Underking. And then Jessica comes out and tells Hypaxia to, like, get him, and Hypaxia strikes him, and he shatters into 1,000,000 pieces. And so now the Underking is dead. And as the Under King's killer, Hypaxia has just become the official leader of the House of Flame and Shadow. So she went from being the leader of the queens, or the witches, the queen of the witches, or whatever they called it, to being nothing and on the run. And now she's the head of House of Flame and Shadow, which Jessica is the second. And she's like, you tricked me, because Jessica could have killed him and been the head of the House of Flame and Shadow, but she didn't want to. She wanted Hypaxia to do it, and Hypaxia knows it. So, like, sneaky Jessica. So now that Hypaxia is in charge, he can have as much time as he wants to talk to Connor. So he also is allowed to speak now. So Connor speaks, and he says that him and the other spirits have basically given all what's left of their second light into this bullet. And he wants Ethan to give it to Bryce and get the Gunslayer rifle, and she'll make the killing blow, basically. So this bullet will act like a bomb that will destroy the First Light core that the Asteri use as their food source. And he just says, tell Bryce, don't miss. Oh, Bryce and Connor. So back over with Therian, him and Sathya get back to Midgard, and the Viper Queen, they run into the Viper Queen. And she has like a guard with her, like one of her drugged out people. And we find out that this is Sathya's former like lover, Colin. And she's like, Colin, like leave, like get away from her. And the Viper Queen's like, yeah, no, he works for me. He's on my blood. Like he's drugged out. So she's stressed out. And this is basically what we'll learn. This is Sathya's ordeal. Like, well, him leaving and like the breakup or whatever happened, that was Sathya's ordeal before her drop. So over with Ethan, him and Hypaxia make it to back on Midgard basically, and they run into like the Viper Queen and Therian as well, and they basically are like, hey, I'm the House of Flame and Shadow. Hey, I'm the prime of the wolves. Back down. So there's that. So Hypaxia gives Therian the antidotes and is like, hey, I need you to get this to Bryce in the Eternal City. So that's his new task. So Bryce, Hunt, Ruhn, and Lydia are now headed back to the Eternal City. And Bryce and Hunt record themselves, like, revealing the Asteri secret. So that's going to be live streamed. And as they're preparing the recording, they also have the recording Jessica has of Bryce killing Micah. And all of that will go live tomorrow and kind of, like, inspire a rebellion, they hope. So that night, they take shelter in a safe house. And Hunt and Bryce have sex again. But they're, like, souls and their magic merge again. Like, it's super weird. So we learn that Ethan goes back to the wolves' den because he wants to kind of rally them. But most of the wolves have fled Lunathian, and only like Perry is really left behind to kind of like help with stragglers. And we learn that she dumps Sabine's body in the sewer, and I'm like, rip Sabine, you deserved exactly what you got. But Perry says like, you know, Ethan needs to send word to all the wolves and convince them to seek shelter with the River Queen or to evacuate to Avalon. Because the Asteri might target the wolves as punishment for what Ethan's done. Also, Hypaxia is not coming to the fight, which is ridiculous. You are a healer, but whatever. So she's not coming, and she seems kind of sad. And she tells Therian, because her and Therian kind of got close in the second book, and she's like, I think Sathya is good for you. So Sathya actually has left, though, and left Ethan or Therian a note, and was basically like, hey, I'm going to go try and save Colin. So, good luck with that, I guess. I don't really know how that's going to go.
Right.
And then, also that night, Ruhn, like, comforts Lydia. She's really worried about her sons, but they also have sex for the first time. So, our new favorite couple. So, Ethan decides he is going to bury the previous prime, and he does, like, try to give him a good burial. And then he takes the Gunslayer rifle, and he takes the bullet, and he's going to go try and find Bryce. And it is the next day, and so Bryce splits up, like her and Hunt go one way, Ruhn and Lydia are going to go try and get her sons from Pollux. Declan is going to hack into the security cameras, Flynn is the getaway driver, and Bryce and Hunt's, like, first task is trying to bring back the Fallen to have, like, an army. And as she leaves, she says, through love, all is possible. And I can't say that now without thinking about Charlotte, because she's always like, this is so corny. So, Ruhn tells Lydia that he loves her. Oh, heart eye emojis. And Hunt changes into his old Umbra Mortis suit and helmet, which they find, like, in the palace throne room or whatever. And Bryce uses the mask to bring back the souls of all of the fallen that were hanging on the walls. As they're doing this, of course, Rigulus knew they were coming, so he finds them, and he's like, oh, well, my armies are headed to the Northern Rift, because that's what he thinks he's outsmarting them. And he's basically like, well, while they're fighting us, we're going to get into hell and like take over their territory, blah, 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 blah. But unbeknownst to him, Bryce knew that. And so Hell's army is actually split up and they're going to be waiting on them. So good luck with that. So Bryce and Hunt teleport out of the palace to the Northern Rift, where Hell's armies are like being attacked by the Asteri and the mech suits. And Bryce puts the mask on again and basically like summons all of the fallen into the mech suits, and they start to attack the Asterian guard. Meanwhile, Ruhn and Lydia are in the palace, and they go to the Mystics to try to find out where exactly her sons are. And the Mystics send them to the First Light Core beneath the castle. But Ruhn, and this is so hard, so Ruhn is like, he doesn't think that Lydia's thinking clearly, so he shoots her in the thigh to like incapacitate her, and he runs dead into Pollux like right after that. So what we'll learn is that all of the Asteri, except for Rigelus, are out fighting on the battlefield with Bryce. And Apollyon, Adis, and Thanatos have also come to like lead their armies and fight against them. So Bryce is out there fighting. She's using the Star Sword. She's using Truth Teller. She's like using Thea's magic to try to open a portal, which is basically like a black hole. And she does it, and she sucks in Polaris, which is one of the Asteri. And the only reason that it doesn't like take over is because Hunt's able to use his magic to prevent Bryce from being sucked into. So they get a call from Ruhn, and basically it's like, we need backup at the First Light Core. So they teleport back into the palace, and Bryce is like really losing power and strength fast. So she doesn't land like right where they want to. They landed like a couple of floors above, and they are surrounded by hell beasts, because these beasts basically like they don't, nothing is good or bad to them. Like everybody's fair game, and like there's no control over them. But Therian also shows up, but because he took the antidote, he has no control of his powers, so he kind of like floods the place a little bit. And so like he loses the antidotes in the water, and they're like breaking and everything. So Bryce and Hunt aren't even able to get them, which is like, that's what they needed. So Ruhn runs into Pollux, and of course, the twins are nowhere to be found. So, like, this was all kind of set up. And basically, the Mystics led them into a trap set by Pollux. So, as Therian is, like, trying to find the antidotes, and he finds one, he also finds Lydia. So, he gives her one, and it releases her full power. So, what we learn is that not only is she a stag shifter or deer shifter, she has fire magic. And she heals. So, Pollux is, like wandering the halls, calling her name, which it makes me think of that TikTok sound when it's like, darling. Because that's exactly what I like picture him sounding like ugh, just like a big brute. So he's like looking for her, and he's like, I can sense your soul. Blech, blech, blech. So Bryce and Hunt end up like at the first core thing or whatever, and they see that Polaris and Sirius are dark as far as their light core, but Rigelus is full, and he's standing right there because it was another trap. So Bryce and Hunt like are draining their power. They're teleporting around Rigelus, blasting at the crystal that's protecting the core with Hunt's lightning, like trying to just do anything. Meanwhile, Ethan is like coming close to the palace, but he gets thrown to the side by a blast. And so he is helped up by humans who have come to fight because Bryce's video went live, and they are here to fight back. So Lydia and Therian are still together, and they're kind of like catching up to Ruhn and Pollux, and Pollux finally brings out the boys. So Therian attempts to blast Pollux with water, but Pollux shoots him in the chest, and our boy is down for the count. And Lydia just starts begging for Pollux's mercy, like she's on her knees. She's like, please don't hurt my boys. So in order to spare the boys, Ruhn is like, just take me, and he calls Lydia his mate. Oh. And he mind speaks to her, and he tells her he loves her and that he'll meet her in the next life. And it gives me such Cassian and Nesta vibes when he was like, I'll love you in this life and the next, and blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry I didn't get more time with you. But Pollux is like, no, thank you. And he's like, I'll decline that offer. And he's like, I'll just go kill all of you. So, you know, he sucks. So Pollux tries to hurt Bran, but Lydia literally tackles him out of nowhere and unleashes all of her power and burns him to ash. And you know what? I don't like this kill because he deserved so much worse. That was way too quick. I wanted you to like slowly burn one feather at a time until like, I don't know, and let him regrow, and I wanted you to torture him. But whatever. So Pollux is dead. So this, like, the boys are super happy and they call her mom for the first time. And Lydia asks Ruhn, like, okay, like, she's pissed at Ruhn for shooting her. So she's like, help me get the boys out and, like, we'll be even, basically. And Lydia's, like, thinking to herself, like, she always knew that she had different power, but she never told anyone. But Danica had ran into her, like, some years back and was like, hey, do you have any, like, elemental powers? Because Danica was doing all this research. And she was actually happy when Danica died because she was like, she's asking too many weird questions. Like, I'm undercover. She's going to get me exposed. But, like, she always kind of knew. So after she kills Pollux, Mordok comes in and the Dreadwolves, and she kills all of them like nothing. So they're all dead as well. And what we learn is that in the caves, when King Morven and the Autumn King were down there, they were also, I think it's the Autumn King had firepower. He was, like, throwing his firepower, and she was putting them out, but no one noticed in the caves because no one paid any attention to her. So she basically, like, she kills Mordok and the wolves, but this almost cost her life. But then all of a sudden, the fire sprites show up and they found Queen Erithis, and she basically is able to, like, take out a bunch of the, like, mech suits that were there, and save Lydia. So Ruhn does also get the antidote, and he is able to help heal Therian because he apparently has healing powers now. Which, does Rhys have healing powers? No, that's Helion. I was, like, thinking. Oh. Interesting. All right, so Ethan finds Bryce and Hunt, and he basically tells her, like, Connor sent this, like, this is what he wants you to do. So Bryce is like, okay, but she's completely tapped out. She has no power. And she knows, like, if she has to get closer to Rigulus to shoot the bullet into the First Light Core, but that it will leave her open for him to, like, kill her. So Bryce gives the mask to Hunt, and she, like, just teleports by herself because she had teleported them out, and she teleports back in by herself. So when she gets there, there's 4 Asteri, like, waiting for her. And Rigulus reveals that the core is Midgard's kill switch. So if they destroy the First Light Core, this whole world is going to go up in flames, just like with the Cauldron in Prythian. So Rigulus is like, look, how about I make you a conqueror, you yield to me, and I'll give you power. Like, nobody. You already tried that with Thea and everybody else. Like, I'm not stupid. So she's like, no. And he says the language on her back is from our home world. Like, don't you want to know about it? Like, he's trying to, like, get her any way he can. And she just shoots the bullet right into the First Light Core. So Rigulus grabs her, and he draws his magic, and she draws, like, some of his magic into her, and it powers herself up for another black hole portal. And it pulls all of the Asteri in, plus Bryce. So also Bryce was able, so this is so hard to, like, imagine and talk about out. So she opens this black hole because she's killing the Asteri, but she's also able to open another portal to basically nowhere, so that instead of sucking in Midgard, it just sucks in the other black hole. I don't really know. That's so astrophysics, and that is way above my brain scale, but something like that. So basically all this Asteri get pulled in, and she got pulled into, and Rigulus will not let go of her. Like, he has got death grip on her. So Hunt, stressed out, is like, okay, how can I save her? So he remembers how they, like, transferred their magic, like, when they had sex, and how their, like, souls merged, basically. And so he also remembers that made people or objects, like Nesta, the Horn, Bryce, can wield the mask. So he figures, like, well, then if we merged, then maybe I can wield the mask also. So as he's, like, trying to figure this out, one of the mech suits walks up to him, and he just knows that this is Shahar. So that's his former, I guess, girlfriend or whatever. And he basically allows him to get into her mech suit, and, like, as her, like, final, like, thanks or whatever, is able to project him into, like, the black hole. And so also, like, the black hole, like, it's just like space. So there's no oxygen, like, there's no air or anything. So Hunt's wearing the mask, which is able to, like, somehow allow him to breathe. You really have to be, like, abstract when you read this. Like, you cannot hold on to a single piece of reality while you read this book. So he's wearing the mask, and he goes into the black hole. And so as he gets in there, he sees Bryce, who was able to kick off Rigulus, and, like, in the black hole, again, there's a black hole in the black hole or something like that. She is, like, heading down, and she looks dead. Like, she's just floating there. And so he's able to grab her and like get back out. And Apollyon is literally like, him and Adis are literally holding onto this portal, and it gives me like such Looney Tunes vibes. Like,
yeah,
because they're like holding the world open. I don't know. So they're holding it open so that he can get out, and like he lands and like lays Bryce down, and he tries to resuscitate her, but she's dead. Bryce is dead. So Hypaxia and Jessica show up, and Hypaxia is like, look, I have an option, because Hypaxia is a necromancer. She says Jessica is willing to transfer her curse of immortality to Bryce, which is interesting to me. I have other questions. Okay, I'll come back to that. So basically, she tells them, like, she also tells them the Underking is dead, and so, like, the deal with Bryce is null, like, so Bryce's soul could go to the Bone Quarter now, or whatever. And Jessica just tells Hypaxia to make sure she leads their house back to the right way, basically. And Jessica enters, like, this afterlife realm where Bryce is, which gives me very much Harry Potter. When, I am so sorry if I'm spoiling this for anybody, but this movie has been out like 10,000, and the book's been out super long. But when Harry dies, and then Dumbledore is there, and they're like at the train station, like that's exactly, like, anybody who's reviewed this book said the same thing. Like, that's exactly what you see. Like, that's all I can see. I don't know any other way to like picture it. So Jessica gets in there, and like in the distance you can see like the pack of devils, Danica, Connor, and Lahaba. And Jessica's like, look, Bryce, like, you have stuff to go back to. Like, you need to go back to hunt. And she's like, I'll be here. Like, we'll be here when it's your time or whatever. So she transfers her immortality to Bryce. And she also leaves Bryce her wealth, which we got to know Jessica's loaded, because she's been around for 15,000 years. And she be spending that money like it's nothing. So she leaves her all her money, all of the books, all of the artifacts. And Bryce wakes up. And she wakes up and she goes, this is like attending your own funeral. She goes, who died and made you prime? Looking at Ethan. And Hunt, like, and so like they have like a happy like moment. So we skip ahead a little bit. Hunt turns down like the chance to lead the angels. He's like, look, I'm done with that. I don't want any part. So Isaiah is in charge of the angels. So he goes off to take care of that. Bryce goes back to the, I don't know if she goes back to the Rift to do this, but she opens a portal to Prithian, and she claims her parents back. And what she finds is, like, her parents, Nesta, hanging out. And, like, Nesta's and Ember have, like, a little moment in exchange. And, like, it's very motherly. It's very interesting. And Bryce gives them the Maas. And she gives them Truth Teller. And she gives them the Star Sword. And she says, like, we no longer need this in Midgard. And, she's basically, like, I think, she tells Nesta that I think you've been shown that 8-pointed star, like, for a reason, and that you might need these or something like that. And we learned that Reese and Randall bonded over being overprotective dads. And then Ember hugs Nesta, like, as they're leaving. And so, like, they also got, like, the little bean thing, and, like, everything worked out, and they were fine. So, Ruhn and Lydia reunite with her boys, and also, like, with the boys' fathers. And, like, they have one big, like, happy thing. And she tells the Ocean Queen, like, I quit. And Bran and Ace are, like, going to plan on coming to visit Lydia, like, in the future. And Ace is, like, he's still pissed at Ruhn because he's like, you shot my mom, which is, like, you don't even like your mom. Or you just now started to like your mom, but whatever. So, like, as Ace is, like, walking away, like, Ruhn, like, mind speaks to him, and you can see him, like, trip a little bit. So, like, he didn't know that was coming. And then the Princes of Hell, they leave, and they, like, you know, claim their armies, and they go back. And Bryce closes the Northern Rift permanently. And Therion decides that he's going to go search for Sathya in the meat market. But as he goes to look for her, he runs into Ariadne. So, a lot of people think that the next book is House of Many Waters. So, we're going to be in the water, obviously Therion. But, like, we think Ariadne and Sathya are going to be big players here. So, the last chapter, Bryce basically holds a press conference. And she invites all of the Fae nobility. And she basically dismantles all of the royal houses, abolishes the monarchy. She calls this a democratic Senate now. She disperses all of her dad's wealth. She turns his mansion into an orphanage, and, like, his condos and, like, the other apartments, all kind of stuff. Like, she tears it, and I'm like, she didn't need his money because she's got Jessica's money. She opens a new gallery called Griffin Antiquities, and she hires the fire sprites that were with Sigrid to be her employees, kind of like Lahaba. And Ruhn and Lydia get an apartment, which is literally underneath Bryce's apartment, so super weird. And like Ruhn picked this apartment out and even made sure there was like a spare bedroom for the boys. And they open the fridge and the only thing that's in there is beer because he promised to get Lydia like a beer like earlier in the book. So he got her a beer. And Ethan, Flynn, and Declan are at the den because he's like trying to like bring the wolves in and like figure out what being in charge of that looks like. Hypaxia is working on creating a mass of the antidotes. And trying to find a way to power Lunathium, because even though like the first light core got destroyed, that's also where their power came from. So they have to figure out a way like to not suck their own magic out, but also power the city. Otherwise, it's gonna be like Prithian around here. So, and they have no idea how long it will last. And Hunt and Bryce are trying to have a little sexy time, and the phone keeps ringing because it's Baxian, and they're like, "What?" He says, "They're everywhere. They're everywhere." There are a bunch of Pegasi emerging on Avalon. They have just arisen. We have jelly jubilees everywhere. The end. But there are also 5 bonus chapters.
And I didn't read any of those.
Okay, well, I'm going to spoil it a little bit for you.
Well,
I'm not
that's
in
fine.
detail. I didn't read all of them. So there's one from Barnes & Noble. That was the Bryce and Hunt. I did not read that one. People that didn't love it. I believe it's Bryce and Hunt go to Embers for Christmas or something like that. Winter solstice. The Books A Million was Ember and Randall. I also did not read this one, but essentially Ember like snaps off on Reese because of how he treats Nesta. And a lot of people have weird worries about it because like in it, I believe Cassian's there, but like not defending Nesta, and everybody just like what has been going on, because the way Nesta was in this book is like she was so isolated, which is not how like Silver Flames ended. Silver Flames ended, she like saved everybody's life, so everybody's like, what's been going on that Nesta again is like the outsider, and like also to the point that Cassian is like not. And some people were like, well, her tattoo's gone, like are they not mates? I'm like, that's not what made them mates.
Right.
Like they had a bargain and it goes away. But yeah, so that was that one. So that's why Ember and Nesta like got close, because she basically was like, Reese, you're a dick, chill out. Then there was Bryce and Danica. So this is the night that Danica gets Bryce to get the tattoo. So she basically gets Bryce like super messed up, and like she ground up this powder and like takes her to get the tattoo. That was in indie bookstores. And then the Target one was Ruhn and Lydia, which I think is the cutest. Lydia basically plans this entire surprise wedding for her and Ruhn, and it's like at night, and like they like Lydia's like also learning how to like be a normal person, so like they're like art shopping and stuff, but it was like at night, like a park, and everyone was there, and they had like little like fairy lights or whatever. Like I don't know. I was like Ruhn's such a like submissive little man. Like it was just so cute. Like I was like they're so cute. And then also the one I love is the Walmart one, which is Bryce, Nesta, and Azriel, which is them in the caves, and basically Bryce plays music for them. And it's so funny because she plays kind of like a club song, and Azriel's like, I like that. So like if you see on TikTok when they're like, Azriel's a club rat, that's why, because he's like, can you play that one again? Like he likes that one, and everyone's like, you can see Azriel at Rita's like partying up. So those are the bonus chapters. So, how would you rate this one?
So, I ended up rating it 4 stars.
Yeah, I think that's what I did too.
Yeah, I don't remember what I rated the other ones. I enjoyed it. It was a lot.
It's a lot. It could have been 2 books.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's so long, especially on a reread. I was dying. Because at the end, like, it does get good, but, like, you have to get there, and I'm just, like, I already know what happened, so I wasn't, like, ooh, what happens?
And there's a bunch of jumping.
Yes, it's so, like, and I think, like, and most people speculate that now, like, pretty much in any of her books, like, well, unless she starts a new series, like, that's pretty much how they're going to, because she's built such massive worlds that it's impossible to just be, like, one POV or, like, I don't know. But they're not even, like, chapter jumps. Like, it's mid-chapter, just, like, jumping around. I mean, a lot of people did not like this. I think a lot of people thought that the Prithian Akatar crossover was going to be so much more than it was. Which, she never said it was Avengers level crossover. She never said it was going to be that. So, I mean, would it have been cool to see more of them? Yes, but who knows? I mean, who knows? But I'm not mad about it. I do think people don't like Bryce in this book. she was being a brat. Obviously, things are still unfinished. I do feel bad for Hunt. Love Ruhn and Lydia. That's pretty much everyone's favorite. That's the favorite part. Therion's still an idiot. Ethan. And that's the other thing is, like, people are like, everything was so easy. Like, Hypaxia just got the cure.
Yeah.
Now Ethan's the prime. Hypaxia is over the thing. Like, Bryce is the queen of everything. Like, it was just like...
For how much happened and how big the book was, like, it did, like, a lot of the stuff, like, was resolved really...
Real quick.
Yeah.
Like, there was... The only thing was, like, Bryce and Hunt didn't get the, like... Whatever. The antidote.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, everything... Like, Bryce didn't die. Like, they were like, Bryce could have just stayed dead. Something like they're like, nope, but of course she came back. Like,
right.
It's like, it's just so easy. And so, which SJM says, like, she loves a happy ending, like that's what she likes, but a lot of people have issue with that. They're just like, I don't know. I like these book in order, like from most to like least, so I like this the least of the three. I still like it, but that first one is just like,
I
so
would
good.
have to agree.
Yeah.
I love the first one, and like I've mentioned before, I feel like that would have been a great, like, one and done.
Yeah.
Love the first one. And, yeah, I would probably say out of the three, this is my...
Yeah.
Again, I liked it, but out of the three, it's probably my least favorite.
Yeah. It was just, it's a lot. I don't know. I mean, I kind of felt that about Iron Flame. Like, sometimes it's just too much. Like, these books are too long.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a lot of, like, filler, which I can't say it's unnecessary because, like, you do have to connect all these pieces.
Right.
But... I don't know. It's just a lot.
Especially for how easily stuff was resolved.
Yes.
Like, I feel like could have definitely cut it into 2 books and then added a little more tension and a little more difficulty with everything.
Yeah. I agree. Do we have reviews?
We do, and
I'm afraid.
I'm going to have 3.
Oh, I'm scared.
So, the first one... I'm going to do a 1-star. I'm going to find the first one that isn't 5 million pages long. Okay. All 1-star. All SJM books have dudes with massive cervix-destroying hogs, dead ladies who infodump, prophecy, the entire plan on how to save the world, every character joining together to overthrow the government and then becoming the government, heroines who are strong, I guess, but also deeply irritating and unchanging. Sex scenes in the middle of war because, of course, your friends want to hear the cot squeak. A deeply unsatisfying battle scene, and yet somehow I keep giving her my money.
Well.
I really like that review. Okay. 5 stars. That's also not 5 million. People have a lot to say. 5 stars. Waited 2 years to finish this book in 2 days. Haven't cried this hard since Kingdom of Ash. I'm unwell. Need multiple business days to process.
Ash was good.
Now, this is an unrated review.
Oh.
By our friend Charlotte.
Oh. Found.
She said, now let me prepare.
Oh gosh, I'm afraid.
Brother, ew. Every book, you learn a new way these female characters can't live without men. They all try constantly to sacrifice their lives for mediocre men. Every single character is like, I'm the problem, it's me. I'm responsible for every bad thing in the world. And then they're all trying to sacrifice themselves to save each other, which I guess would be super heartening if this were real life, but sadly it's a book, and unfortunately everyone in this book always does exactly what you'd expect of them. If they ever get in a tough spot, all you gotta do is click your heels and it's like Deus Ex Machina or whatever will fall from the sky. Give me a break. What are these 20-year-olds doing with these 300-plus-year-old men anyway? This is a party planet. Why y'all choosing sadness? At least ACOTAR had one single twist where some people you like ended up being evil, but in Crescent City, everyone just wears their heart on their sleeves and on their sleeves. Honestly, it's no wonder they get conquered by parasites. Not to mention, every 5 seconds, someone's mouth twitched up, their eyes shuddered, their lips quirked, their toes curled like Jesus God, Sarah by a thesaurus. And I'm gonna end this by saying, Charlotte says this, but she can't get enough.
She can't stop reading them. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I love Charlotte.
Yeah, I saw the review and I was like, and I am reading that
Charlotte
one.
is an English professor, so we subject her to horrible books that we just read for vibes, but she can't turn off her English literature brain. So, like, we're always like, you go first at book club. And we love her for it.
I mean, she always brings good points.
The very first time she came was the very first time I came to a book club. Or no, maybe it wasn't the first time. I don't know. But anyway, so, like, we have another person, Cam, and he's like, this book, I give it, like, a 4 stars. And then she, like, was throwing out all his points. He's like, fine, 3.75. Valid points.
And the one time that she really enjoyed one of the books, and I can't even remember what it was, everybody else, or, like, the majority of book club hated it. Which was
dang.
funny.
What was that? It wasn't Powerless, was it? Did she like this?
I don't think so.
I don't think it was that one. Dang it. What was it?
You
I don't know.
I'm going to go into her Goodreads and we'll find
I know, we're going to have to find out. Like, dang it.
What was the book? It was it Expiration Dates?
Oh, maybe it was.
Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't Powerless.
I was like, I don't think it was. That doesn't seem like her jam.
Because she said, for Powerless, book club book, not a fan, but it didn't make me keep reading. So yeah, it probably was Expiration Dates.
Aw. That was okay. That one was like, just like, I don't really have any emotion toward it. Like,
it was good.
Yeah.
What was it? In 5 Years.
oh,
Probably, like, I loved In 5 Years.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay, well, our next book is... Let me double check before I say that. I always second guess myself. Yeah, I was right. All right, the next book, and I know I'm gonna mispronounce this. So it's The Quiet Tenant by Clemence. I don't know.
She's French.
It is a girl. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Michelon.
Something like that.
That sounds French. So, The Quiet Tenant. If you search it, that'll come up. So, that is our next book. And if you are not following us on TikTok, you should be. We're almost at 500. We're like, getting there. Slowly. We're really trying to get to 1,000, but we're getting to 500. We're getting there. I'm working on it. So, make sure you're following us on all the socials. I updated the link tree, and it's good now. And we're on, like, all these different sites now because of how the podcast is sent out. So however you're listening to us, we greatly appreciate it. But continue to force all your friends to listen to us. Also, it would really help if you also interact so that you actually like or rate the episodes, as well as like share a post or do that to really help us. The more interaction we have,
comment on our post.
Yes.
Something.
The more interaction we have, the more stuff that we can do for you guys. So
we take requests too.
Yes. Oh, we're going to have an author. So we had an author reach out. She also wants to do like an interview. So that's new. We'll do that. So we're trying to do new stuff. So throw us ideas and interact with us. Please, we're begging. But I think that's it.
I think that's all.
All right. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.